Welcome to Talking Technology with VI Labs. At VI Labs, we believe technology is the single greatest enabler for people with sight loss and all disabilities. If you're looking for the latest news and conversation on tech from a more accessible perspective, you've come to the right place.
Yes, indeed you have. Hello and welcome in to Talking Technology episode number 66. We have reached officially our retirement age. We joked last time about reaching episode 65 that we were nearly at retirement age, but now we have officially reached it. How cool is that? It's been a busy week in the world of technology, and just this morning we found out that Apple, forget all the new, iPhones and Apple Watches and all that. Apple have to pay us 13.1 billion euros in unpaid tax. 13.1 billion. Just to put that into perspective, if I went into a select shop right now and I said I want the brand new iPhone 16 Pro and I want a brand new Apple Watch Ultra 2 and I want it for every single person in the country, all 5 million of us, I could do that with 13 billion and still walk out of there with 5 million new iPhones and Apple Watch Ultras, and even throwing in 256 gigabytes on the iPhones too, and still have 1.8 billion in change. It doesn't get much better than that, does it? But yeah, there's going to be lots of questions in coming days as to how that money is going to be spent and all of that interesting stuff. But yeah, 13.1 billion. It's a lot of moolah. It really, really is. But hey, that isn't the only Apple news, and we have a show packed with Apple news because there is new iPhones on the way, new Apple Watches, and some really cool new stuff with the AirPods too. So there is a load to discuss, and we've got a great panel here to discuss it with us, and I'll introduce you to them in just a bit. But hey, as always, Talking Technology isn't just our show, it's your show. If you want to get in touch with us, there are loads of ways to do so, and we would absolutely love to hear from you. If you want to join the conversation, as always, we would love to get your feedback, what you think the country should be doing with 13.1 billion euros. I don't think we'll even ask that question. That could be a controversial one. But hey, what do you think of the new iPhones? Did you get some new tech recently? Will you be upgrading this year? We'd love to hear from you. You can send us a WhatsApp voice note. The number that you need is 086 199 0011. That's 086 199 0011. Or if you want to get in touch and send us a message the good old-fashioned way, that's email. You can send us an email to content@vi.ie. That's content@vi.ie. No matter how you would like to get in touch with us, and no matter what you would like to talk about, we would absolutely love to hear from you. So please do get in touch. And hey, as always, there have been people getting in touch with us over the past week or so. It's only been a week since we were talking to you, so people have been getting in touch over the past week. And joining me today to talk about all of your voice notes, I am not joined from Kilkenny by Mr. Joe Donegan. Joe is sunning himself. He's on his holidays. But I am instead joined by the legend that is Mr. Daniel Dunn. Daniel, how are things?
Not too bad now, David. I'll keep him well. Great to hear Joe is out sunning himself. Meanwhile, we're stuck here in 12 degrees and freezing cold.
Do you know what? It's true. We were looking there at lunchtime and we were looking out the window and it's raining, Daniel. It's raining, which, I don't think Joe is going to be having his rain there in España. But, do you know, Joe is being cruel to us, Daniel. Do you know why, right? He has sent us... how cruel is this? He has sent us a voice note from Spain with his perspectives on last night's Apple event. Just to rub in the salt into that wound, he sent us a voice note from the beach. Here is what Joe had to say when he sent us a voice note.
Hey David, hope all is good at home. I didn't get to watch the Apple event, as you can imagine. I was too busy building sandcastles and drinking cocktails. But one thing I did notice, there's a visual intelligence thing, and I could have done with that out here. Maybe I would have found some menus before I went into the restaurant. Apparently you can point your camera at a building and your visual intelligence will recognize the restaurant, and then you can get the menu before you go in. And that sounds cool, but other than that, I don't think I missed that much. David, you mind yourself at home, and chat to you next week. Bye.
I love it, Daniel. I love it. He's a cruel man, but
he deliberately went down to the water's edge.
He actually
hear
did.
The waves slashing in.
yeah, he actually did. But he does raise an interesting point though about visual intelligence, and we'll talk more about this with the panel later on. A really interesting feature, and one that may definitely be of interest to people with sight loss for sure. And yeah, even in those contexts, like Joe's on his holidays, getting the restaurant menu, that's a really important thing, and it's stuff that a lot of people can struggle with in many ways, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Sounds like a very, very good feature. I'd love to see that being rolled out everywhere. And hopefully in time it will. I think it's definitely, a huge boost to anyone who wants to kind of, see what's the restaurant about, what's the menu about before they rock up to the door, or sometimes you even have to go into a restaurant to get the menu. So, and at that stage, like if you go into a restaurant maybe and you look for the menu because there wasn't nothing available outside, you're kind of, you feel awkward if you turn around and say, nothing suits me here, and walk back out.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wonder if you can point it at the waves and be like, is it good for surfing today? I wonder, is it that good, or is it more like a Be My AI and stuff like that? We'll talk about all that and more later. But for now, Joe, thank you so much for sending in the voice note. Enjoy the holiday in España. And we'll see you back here next week. You do have to come back, Joe, unfortunately. But thank you so much, Joe, for getting in touch. Another person who was getting in touch with us around all sorts of matters arising from previous podcasts is Raheem Nazarali. Last time Raheem was in touch, he was getting some work done on the house. If I recall, last time Raheem was in touch with us, he was staying in a luxury apartment, if I recall. So it seems all involved with talking technology or living the high life, except for us. But Raheem sent us in a voice note, as I say, with a number of topics from previous podcasts. Here's what Raheem had to say.
Hi, Joe, David, and Daniel. Really enjoying the podcast so far. Just going back to 2 episodes ago, just want to comment on Joe's piece around solar panels. I found it very interesting, very informative. My renovation's nearly finished. We actually went for a combi boiler. We already have a gas heating system, so we got new plumbing, total new heating system, but we actually got a combi boiler, which is instant heat, instant hot water all the time, and we also got the Hive. So with the combi boiler, we would have instant hot water constantly. So in relation to the solar panels and the water inversion system, I'm not sure how that would work with a combi boiler. Obviously, as the water inverter heats the water with the solar panel system. But I'm definitely interested in solar panels. I'll just have to do some research on how that would work with a combi boiler. Regarding podcasts, I think was it April, on the Samsung SC90, I think it was the S90C TV. Also made a purchase on one of those, got the 65-inch. It was the end of line product, as they're bringing out, I think, new versions of these TVs in September. So I managed to get it at a good price, as I think the new model was costing, I think, going to be twice the amount more. So double the price, I think, nearly. So that was great. So thanks for that, Joe and team. Appreciate the tip on that one. Regarding just getting smart appliances for my kitchen, I did purchase a Samsung washing machine, Samsung dryer, which will work with the SmartThings app. I did buy an oven. again, this would have been around April, May, getting it delivered soon. And I actually need to check the order just to see if it is a smart oven. It was a Neff, all right, and I think it was a smart oven, but I just have to check now if it'll work with the Home Connect. If not, I may actually change that order and look at getting a smart oven. Again, appreciate the last podcast on all the smart devices. So keep up the great work, and talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Raheem. Yeah, it's some really interesting stuff there, covering a lot of bits. Great reaction to that podcast that we did last week around all of that smart home stuff as well. If you do want to check that out, it's on the podcast feeds and on YouTube. But Daniel, solar panels, are you on board with the whole solar panel things? Do you have one of those combi boilers? What's your setup like?
So I'd be very interested in solar panels because, kind of how much, like traditionally when solar panels came out first were very dependent on sunlight, but the newer generations of them now, they just need daylight, so they convert the ambient light. It's while the sun does give them that extra boost, but at least how much daylight you're going to get at any given day of the year, so you can kind of rely on it for that. And I think coupled with a storage battery, I think is definitely an appealing thing for me to do. Not there yet. It's definitely something, I suppose, there is a considerable input cost, I suppose, so you have to kind of gather that money together first. But I think in the long run, because the way of energy prices have gone over the last 3 to 4 years, it's definitely the time now to be, investing in some home generation, and and that cuts down the electricity bill coming in every month or 2 months, whichever billing cycle you're on. So, like the solar panels, because they're relatively small. I know they're a big unit, but they're relatively small, I suppose, in comparison to a wind turbine or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, and if you have a decent roof space that's pointing in the right direction, you can really maximize that to reduce your energy costs. And I know a few people who are doing it. Their electricity bill is next to zero, or even in the minus, where they're making money back off the ESB throughout the summer. And obviously then their winter bills are a lot more modest than the crazy 300, 400, 500 euro bi-monthly bills that they were getting over the winter in previous years. So everything I'm hearing about is quite good. So I have to say, it's you kind of know exactly what you're getting, and in general, it does live up to that. So I think it's a good way forward. Speaking of that 13 billion, maybe
That's
if
true.
The government bought us all 10 solar panels each. It'd be great,
Yeah,
wouldn't
do
it?
you know what? I'm on board. I'd take it. But yeah, it's interesting. And Raheem there makes the point, and Joe in a similar boat last week, around getting a lot of these oftentimes slightly newer smart home devices and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And those do tend, and I don't want to overgeneralize here, but those do tend to be that little bit more energy efficient, so when you're combining, even the newer ovens and washing machines and all of that sort of stuff, with something like solar panels, I guess, yes, it's a really high upfront cost, and one that, it is going to be out of reach for some people. But I do think, like, longer term, it does actually make a lot of sense when you look at the economics of it. And who knows, maybe that 13 billion could be put to some good use with a bit of solar power for us, or even a wind turbine or two, Would you put a wind turbine in the backyard if it meant no energy bills, Daniel?
No, because you're relying on wind, which is very intermittent, so while it's grand maybe in the autumn and March and things like that, there's a lot of other parts of the year. I suppose maybe this year wasn't a great example, but traditionally in our summer we get a good high pressure sitting over the country, the wind barely barely blows at all. So now that's true where I am here in the Midlands. Maybe around the coast is a different story, but I don't think they're very, very suitable for my part of the world anyway.
Fair enough. Well, Daniel, listen, thank you so much for going through those with me. And Raheem, thank you so much for sending in the voice note as well this week. Really appreciate, as always, you listening to the podcast and sharing your thoughts. And best of luck with that home renovation work, as you said, coming to an end there. And hopefully it lives up to the expectations, because those are big moves. I'm sure it's going to feel slightly disappointing moving out of that luxury apartment and stuff that you were staying in before. But there you go.
I wonder will his home feature on one of Dermot Bannon's upcoming shows?
Wouldn't it be cool? Do you know, Room to Improve or one of those? It would be cool.
I do love those shows.
Yeah, they're great little ones. He's got a new one, I think, coming soon, like Incredible Homes or something like that. Yeah. It would have, if there's one thing for sure, Daniel, if it did, Raheem would have a lot of windows. That is an absolute...
and it'd be over budget.
yes, that's very true. We better move on before we defame poor Dermot Bannon here. Raheem, thank you so much for sending in that voice note. Much appreciated. If you too would like to send a voice note in, we'd absolutely love to hear from you. The number that you need on WhatsApp is 086 199 0011. That's 086 199 0011. Remember, a voice note is not a call. You want to use the voice note button that's located at the bottom right hand side of your screen. Right, moving on. Last night, Apple's GlowTime event took place. It was much anticipated. We get these events every September, talking about new iPhones, new Apple Watches. And yesterday we also got some upgrades, some really interesting upgrades actually, to the AirPod line. And joining me on Talking Technology now to discuss that, Daniel is staying around, but we are also joined by Mairead O'Mahony from the VI Labs technology team and Diana Penamora from our Vision Ireland sister company, Viali. Hello both, how are we?
Good, thanks.
Hello.
How are you?
Awesome, thank you. So, Mairead, let's start with yourself. How are you feeling after GlowTime? What was your thoughts on the event last night?
Yeah, I did. I found it a very interesting event. Maybe not as many kind of really new things that I would have loved to see, but there was a lot of new improvements to products that already exist and things, which is really good to see. Especially with the iPhone 16 Pro now, it focused very heavily, I suppose, on camera features, which wouldn't be, it wouldn't make me upgrade, but it could make somebody upgrade who really wants, more camera features and things.
Yeah.
So definitely the watch, all right, is one that got me, the new Watch Ultra, because it might be something that I might consider upgrading to, because I currently have the Series 4 watch. And of course, I can't update that anymore now. I can't get any more software updates for that since the last one even. And plus, my battery, I only get a couple of hours out of the battery now. So that might make me consider upgrading, all right, my Apple Watch. It's something I'll definitely think about. So, even the new sleep system, the sleep apnea is a good thing to have in it as well.
Yeah.
And again, there's better, fall detection and things in the watch as well. So they're all to be kind of tested out, really.
For sure. And Diana, if I ask you the same kind of question, was there anything really that stood out to you from the event? Anything that made you say, wow, I want to upgrade? Or on the contrary, you were like, nah, that won't do it for me?
For me, firstly, I'd have to agree that while it was definitely an interesting event, there wasn't really anything too groundbreaking, at least compared to other Apple events in the past. However, I would have to mention the AirPods section. Actually, the AirPods Pro 2 are getting a new hearing aid feature. They're not actually releasing an AirPods Pro 3. They're just releasing a software update, it seems.
Yeah.
A free one as well. So so what will happen is that the users will be able to take a hearing test, and then they can use their AirPods Pro 2 as a hearing aid device, basically. And I thought that was really cool. That was really, really interesting.
Especially as just a software update, isn't it? It's like,
exactly,
you know,
yeah.
it's free. It's free stuff, you know? Well, it's not free if you don't have them, but if you do have them, which I'm lucky enough, I do actually. So I will get that update, which is awesome.
Definitely, yeah. From what I've seen as well from the reactions online, a lot of people seem to think that the hearing aid feature was one of the most impressive things to come out of the Apple event, and people do seem to be quite optimistic enough about it. It does seem like Apple's been doing a bit of research into that area. A lot of people did seem to predict that, you know, eventually they'd be coming out with a feature like this. And as well, like, relatives of those with hearing loss seem to be the most excited. I've seen a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm definitely getting this for my parents or for my grandparents," that kind of thing.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, those lines have been blurring for quite a while. Those kind of lines between headphones and hearing aid technology. So it seems now like Apple has really just kind of gone and pulled the plaster off and said, yeah, AirPods can now, the term they use here, professional grade hearing aids, and capable of helping with mild to moderate hearing loss, which is that's a really ballsy statement in many ways, isn't it? It isn't shying away from anything. What are your thoughts here, Daniel?
Yeah, it's a very interesting. I say in America here, I was reading some American news that they referred as a clinical grade, which I thought is very, very bold. Is the word? But bold is, I'm not sure that's the right word, but it's very strong. It's a very strong statement. So yeah, it's very interesting. You do your hearing test, and the new AirPods are going to apply that across all the settings, so you can apply that to music, movies, phone calls, everything that you use audio wise on your phone. So yeah, I think it's very, very interesting. It's very good. One thing Apple do have to be commended on is how they go about their accessibility, their innovation in the field, what they can bring, in under the hood of an Apple iPhone or an iPad, and obviously the headphones here. You know, they're very good, and at sussing out where there's an angle they can go.
Absolutely, and we here in Vision Ireland focus a lot on vision impairment, obviously, but yourselves over in Viali, Diana, you guys focus on a slightly broader range of disabilities to ourselves. But you, I know, wrote an article, I think, for the Viali blog at a point in the past about Apple having, things like sign time and stuff like that. So Apple really do have a real good grasp on accessibility, not just for sight loss, but also for hearing loss in that way as well, which is really cool, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm definitely very interested to see where they're going to take this, and if it really does, if it really is as impressive as it sounds. For some, it seems like they might be waiting for more reviews to really give their full opinion on how well it's working. And I think Apple itself is still maybe waiting on the final FDA clearance. So, you know, all those claims about being clinical grade hearing aids.
It's kind of like to be determined. Yeah. But it is definitely a really cool, and I think for me definitely as well, it was one of the highlights of yesterday's event, and I think will be one that is talked about for quite a while. There is one or two other upgrades on the AirPods front from yesterday's event. The noise cancellation and all those active noise cancelling features with transparency mode, all that, those are making their way from the AirPods Pro line down to the standard edition now. You do actually still have to pay a slight premium. I think the price they quoted there was $179 if you want the active noise cancelling.
That's right, yeah.
And they've also then introduced another great pro feature, which is the speaker in the case, and a slightly smaller case as well. That is now coming to the standard edition. Mairead, for yourself, you have the most recent Pro models, the AirPod Pro 2. So you will be getting you'll be getting this new hearing aid feature, but also a lot of people who just get the new standard ones going forward will have a lot of those features that had previously been exclusive to the Pros. When you look at things like the active noise cancelling and the speaker in the case, do you find yourself using those features? Are they worth the extra money that someone could pay for them now?
I would definitely think so, because sometimes even, if you put your headphones down somewhere in the case somewhere, you're like, because it's so small, you're like, oh God, where did I put it? Especially if you're in a different room or something to normal, and you can just ping them and you'll hear the case ping then and you'll be able to find them. So I think it is a very useful feature to have.
Absolutely. I must say, I use it at home, even in rooms where I am regularly. We have one of the little HomePod minis at home, and it's so handy to just be able to yell for Siri to find the case, and it just works. It's really, really good. But yeah, some really exciting stuff there. On the Apple Watch front, there is no Apple Watch Ultra 3, which I must say I was kind of disappointed by. If I was going to upgrade this year, I've always said I think that now if I'm upgrading, I'm going to probably upgrade to an Ultra. I've got a Series 5 at the moment, so going back a few years, we're at Series 10 now. But there was no Ultra 3 this year, unfortunately. So you can't get a watch with like the newest features and the action button, which I think is a shame. But there is some really interesting upgrades to the standard watch for this Series 10. Mairead, you mentioned the sleep apnea earlier. That's great. It's also getting a depth sensor, some really cool stuff. Diana, if I come to you on this one, you're not currently an Apple Watch user, but would this tempt you to get one?
I think it might actually. I mean, the fact that I haven't been an Apple Watch user means that there's nothing really for me to compare it to at the moment. And I think there's enough new features that have been introduced. So I'd at least be interested in giving it a try, yeah.
Are you into like the fitness side of things? Like how, like out of all of the stuff that they talk about from the like Apple Watch side, what do you find like appeals to you? Is it more that kind of health tracking stuff like the sleep apnea stuff, or is it more the kind of, general fitness, or do you just want something to tell the time at the end of the day?
In this case, I'd actually want the fitness features. That's what I'm looking at, mainly because I do. One of my goals is to get more involved in the fitness. And if I was jogging and that kind of thing, or exercising more, definitely that's the feature I'd be using the most. Obviously, with time, that is really like at the bottom of the list.
Fair enough. Mairead, I know you do a bit in the world of swimming, and the Apple Watch now has a water temperature sensor, and the standard one is also getting the depth kind of gauge that previously was only on the Ultra. How important do you think this is? Do you use the Apple Watch with swimming? Can you even do that?
Yeah, I mean, I've used it. There is a water lock mode that you can put it onto when you're going swimming. The only thing is it does, once you do come out of the pool or whatever, it does take a few minutes before you kind of have to twist the crown again to get the water lock back off. And sometimes it does take a little bit, maybe 5-10 minutes before the voiceover will come back, especially as your watch gets older, it takes a little bit longer. So I do find
scary.
now that my watch is older now that it is taking that little bit longer to come back to the voiceover again on it.
Yeah.
But for now it does still work. So yeah, it's definitely something that would be nice to see, I think.
Do you ever get nervous that like you'll go into the pool someday and you'll come out and you'll just like, voiceover is just not even playing ball now? I'd be nervous there that you'd drown.
Initially, yes, I was really nervous when I started trying it first, and I was thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? And then I said, well, look, it says it can do it in the manual. It's under warranty. So, I haven't done anything that I'm not meant to do with it. So that's kind of how I justified it to myself at the time.
No, and that's fair enough. It is absolutely fair enough. I'm brutal. I won't even use the Apple Watch in the shower. I just get too nervous of that because this is expensive stuff. Like at the end of the day, isn't it? But yeah, some really cool stuff. It does kind of give you some level of confidence when there's literally an app there called Depth that is designed to measure how deep underwater the Apple Watch is. But yeah, now it can also do things like the water temperature detection and stuff like that. So if you do a swimming based workout with the Apple Watch, the water temperature and stuff like that shows up in all of those metrics as well, which is really cool. There is some other small changes. They've improved the display a little bit. So now when your wrist is down, it can do a second by second display. So you can have a ticking seconds hand as opposed to just having the minutes. And it is also now 40% brighter when you are when your wrist is down and when you're looking at it from an angle. 40% brighter there, which is great to see. Diana, it's a little bit bigger. We're going to 42 millimeters and 46 millimeters respectively. So 2 millimeter increases on both of the screens here. And Apple do say that this will increase or at least enable the user to get a little bit more on screen with larger text sizes. How important would you think this is really for those with low vision? Do you think this will make a difference, or is it still just going to be small text on a small screen?
No, definitely. It doesn't sound like that much of a difference, but really when you're actually using it in your everyday life, it would be a bit more noticeable in that case. It is the larger text, the larger screen size, I should say, and the ability to increase the text size itself as well. All very important features to have when when you're catering to users with maybe lower vision or other vision disabilities.
For sure, yeah. I must say I'm really excited to try, and I don't think, as I say, I don't think I'm going upgrading this year, but I would be really curious to try out the things like that new watch face. It looks really cool there, where you have the big bold text. I'm using something similar on my one at the moment. I think mine is called like X large or something like that. But they've got a new Flux face, which shows in different colors and has quite large bold text there to tie in with the actual colors of the Apple Watch, which is really cool. And those are the main features. I don't think, am I missing anything, Mairead? I think those are the main features on the Apple Watch side this time around. And I guess then the other side of this was the iPhone. The iPhone is, I guess, the biggest area. This is the area that Apple spent nearly an hour talking about, over half the event time. Yes. And they had 4 new models. So we're at the 16 series at this point. So iPhone 16, 16 Plus, 16 Pro, and 16 Pro Max. So if we start off with the 16, camera upgrades is always a hot topic. And they are adding a new little control surface called Camera Control. Daniel, are you much of a photographer yourself?
Yeah, I am. I like my photographs, as I say. And one thing, because I have an iPhone and an Android phone, one for work and one for playing about. My Samsung, I find, is still my favorite daytime phone, daylight. Okay. But the Apple phone would be my nighttime.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one.
It is, because
yeah.
wasn't it? I can't remember what phone it was, and I don't want to say because we'll get in trouble. But I think there was some phone that was like artificially like adjusting the moon when you were taking photos at nighttime. Which is kind of crazy that, you know, phones are using AI and stuff a lot now, especially when you're dealing with those low light environments. But it is kind of cool in that way. But yeah, some upgrades, and they've added also this little camera controlled surface. Do you think this physical, I guess, clicky thing, it's not a button, it's more of a touch surface, but is that important, do you think, Daniel?
I think it is. I suppose most recently was the vivid displays of aurora we've got over the summer. I've quite enjoyed going out at night time to photograph those, and yeah, like you're generally doing a 4-second exposure capture for northern lights and things like that, particularly this far south. And in order to be able to get the best picture, you have to, ideally you would want a tripod, but that's not always going to be available to you, so next best thing is to hold it as still as you can in your hand. And it's just, when you're moving your thumb around to the front of the screen to get the capture, I think, that just hinders you a little bit. So I think the more, going back to like an access button and by sliding or whatever, I think it is going to be easier. I think, the more ways you can incorporate getting the shutter, the better, I think.
Absolutely. Diana, if I ask you just a kind of similar question as one of our resident sighted people here on the podcast, just how important do you find things like the camera? Because it's hard, I think, for me to get excited about the camera. Like, obviously to a certain extent it helps with things like OCR and stuff like that, but me obviously being visually impaired, it's not something I'm going to do a massive amount of from like a photography point of view. But when you're seeing these like upgrades year in, year out, how exciting is it still? Is the improvement still good to see, or does it just get a bit boring?
Actually, to me, I do enjoy seeing the improvement. Now, I wouldn't call myself a professional photographer or anything, but like just within my community, like during events or like birthday parties and things, I would be one of the designated camera people. So I have like used professional grade cameras before, like the Sony, the Canon and the Panasonic, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that seeing all these improvements that Apple continuously makes to their cameras is very exciting. And also, since Daniel already mentioned the Samsung, it's always been a huge hot topic. Which of the two does have a better camera? So I am quite glad to see the Apple kind of catching up in that case, because previously it was a kind of a thing where the iPhone is good for if you're standing really close to something, it's good at capturing details, etc. But the Samsung phones are much better when you're further away, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah, I tend to agree with you there. And one thing for me, the Samsung absolutely gets spot on is the color in daytime photos. I've been particularly, when I'm taking photographs, can be scenic parts of the country, lovely hills, valleys, trees, forests, that kind of thing. And you like to try and capture those, or in the depths of winter where the sun is shining through a very foggy morning, and just to capture those, I think the Samsung just does it beautifully. And I've often took exact same photos from the same position using the iPhone and the Samsung, and just clearly the Samsung is a hands down winner. And on the daytime shots, I have to say, where there's reasonable amount of light or daylight going on. In the nighttime, I do like the simplicity of the iPhone to be, it'll automatically go into that 4-second capture mode. So if you are doing something like stars, constellations, something like that, it's fantastic for picking those up.
It is interesting. I do wonder, one of the things Apple were showing off yesterday was that ability for macro photography. and they were using the examples of, taking pictures of like a frog or a mantis. But I do wonder, with something as simple as, text that is extremely small, but you're holding the phone really close to that text, will it make much of a difference on that kind of thing? Or is it going to just be purely object based? I guess I'm thinking of my own use case where I'm using things like OCR, Seeing AI, Be My AI, all of those assistive features. But it is definitely a really interesting one, and time will tell, I guess. But those camera improvements are really cool to see for sure, even though for me they're not the most exciting parts. But one of the things that is really exciting is the action button is making its way to the standard models now. Mairead, do you have a phone with an action button at the moment?
Yeah, I have the 15 Pro, which is, and it's nice. You can, for the action button, like you can set it to certain things, like maybe if you held it down, you could set it to turn on the torch or activate the camera or launch an app. So there's certain shortcuts and things that you can create. So instead, like by default, it's set to, on the Pros, on the 15 Pro and up, it's set to mute and unmute calls. So what I have it set to at the moment is to launch the voice mode of GPT, which is really cool. So all I have to do then is hold that down and it'll launch that, and I can just talk to GPT rather than open up the app. So it's a quick way of getting things.
Do you use it much?
I would use GPT a good bit, yeah. No, so I've used it for that. I've also set it previously as well, the action button to, we'll say, launch Shazam, which is a music app that I would use if a song came on the radio and I wanted to know the name of the song and the artist. If I didn't know it, I could just hold down that action button to start recording, and the notification of the song and the artist will come up in the notification center for me then.
My favourite fun fact about Shazam is VoiceOver just couldn't pronounce it for so long. It used to always say, what was it? It used to just say null or null or something. I don't know what caused that, but VoiceOver would not pronounce the word Shazam for so long. But anyway, there you go. So some really interesting stuff there on the regular 15. Is there any other things that I'm missing? I feel like there is a few on this one, but generally
it's just while you're speaking about the action button, Mairead, I suppose, is that a replacement for the back tap, or is the back tap still there?
You could still do the back tap as well.
Okay, so you could set them for different functions.
Yeah. Because with the action button, really, there's only certain things you can set it to. You can't kind of launch certain things with it yet. So I guess I was hoping when the new phones came out that you might have more things that you'd be able to do with the action button. So more customizations, but that hasn't happened yet anyway. But it might come out, but just not be announced yet. So you never know.
It could be a software update in theory.
Yeah.
That would, you could do a lot of that stuff with software.
Yeah.
I think the big difference for me between, say, the action button and something like back tap is I always found back tap to be a little bit unreliable.
Now
I've it on the iPhone 12 now, and I had it enabled just to do a function, and like when you're driving, you put your phone into the holder, and back tap could be going off 3-4 times over some of Ireland's finest roads.
That makes sense, all those potholes. Another thing the 13 billion could solve, but there you go. But it is a fascinating one. I don't find myself using the action button that much, but there are some really cool use cases for it, which is great. It is making its way to the standard model, which is awesome. Diana, I'm going to come to you. The colours. Talk to me about the colours. Are you a fan? Are you not a fan? What do you think?
So I believe they released a different set of colors for the Pro and then just for the normal iPhone 16. The iPhone 16 has gotten like really bright, these really neon, I'm referring to them as colors. There's like teal and bright pink, and then the normal black and white. Now, personally, as long as there's a black and white version, I don't really mind it. Whatever
a
other
bit of
colors
life
they come
now,
out with.
Diana. Bit of life, do you know? Would you not go in the pink or the blue ones, or like something with a bit of spice to it, nah?
I think they're just a bit too bright, and especially since if you have a phone case in the first place, you are very rarely going to see that color at all, unless you get one matching.
Yeah, well, that's fair. And now I joke. We mentioned it on the podcast before. I do have an luminous green iPhone case that I was so sure this is going to be really easy to see and everything, that it blends in to everything. Like even the tables we have here in our office, they're kind of like, an orangey wood kind of color. The color just blends into it, which is not a great investment on my part, but hey, you can get a good variety of colors. And hey, as you say, Diana, those black and white options are always there, so they're safe bets. They're not going to clash with anything, I guess, are they?
Exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. So then as we move on, that's most of the standard iPhone 16 stuff, I should say. But there is also then the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max, which is getting an even bigger screen. We are going to 6.3 and 6.9 inches now, which is crazy. That's up from 6.1 and 6.6 on the previous. These are huge screens, Daniel, aren't they?
Yeah. When did it become phablets? Remember that term that came out a few years ago? I haven't heard much of that term since, and I thought it was a very curious term. So does it cross the line? Is there a rule?
I think we crossed that line years ago.
When a phone screen passes a certain size, is it a phablet?
Yeah. I don't think that's ever been fully defined. I've always thought that the bigger screens would be just bulky in the pocket. But we have an article actually coming in Tech on Tap this Friday, where our colleague Peter, who actually has no vision, but he is actually using the bigger screen simply for the battery life, which is a really interesting use case for it in that regard, because on the surface of it, when you hear I use a bigger screen for battery life, it nearly sounds counterintuitive, because screen size, more pixelation, more energy, and that's going to run down a battery, even though you got a bigger battery under the cover. Yeah, well, Apple do say that the 16 Pro Max is the best battery life they've ever had in an iPhone. Now, there are going to be some who will sneer and say, that's not a very high bar, is it? But it is still a really good achievement to constantly be upping that battery life, because I think, more battery life is always good. You want to get at least a strong day out of your phone battery, really.
And I suppose if you are a voiceover user and to get even more battery life, the screen curtain is great for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very valid point. Again, we are getting some serious camera upgrades here. A lot of the stuff from the standard 15, like that camera control little surface thing, that's also coming to the Pro. But the biggest upgrades here really are around the camera and the audio. So firstly, on the camera front, that macro photography stuff is all coming. You can do more detailed camera shots, and they even had a music video from, I believe it was The Weeknd, this music video that was completely recorded on an iPhone. In fact, Apple even shot the actual event themselves entirely on iPhone. Diana, you had mentioned that you'd used some of those professional grade cameras like the Panasonics and stuff like that in the past. How are these, iPhone cameras, especially on the Pro lines, how are they starting to stack up now in that realm?
Well, the newest updates to the iPhone 16 Pro, I think for videography specifically, so not so much photos, but just taking the videos, like what's Apple shown with the Weeknd's music video and then filming their own event with it. I think the new features are really going to bring them a bit more up to standard in that case for videography specifically.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, and also then you have the audio stuff as well. The biggest one here, I guess, I guess there's two elements. It can definitely do like things like wind reduction. So like we had, that voice note from Joe on the beach earlier, obviously quite a windy environment. And the idea is that it will be able to clean up audio like that and stuff like that and kind of boost the vocal out of wind noise, which is really cool. But it can also do what Apple are saying is studio quality recording. Now, forgive me for being an audio snob here for a minute, because I do love audio and I work with audio day in, day out. I don't know if I can fully believe this yet. I need to hear it to like, it's one of these things, I need to see it to believe it. I need to hear this one to believe it, I think, for me.
Yeah, it's using machine learning to try and separate out background elements from from the speech in particular. That's going to be interesting. And like, is it coming in under the Apple Intelligence banner? Feature?
It's hard to know. They didn't really
separate?
specify. It sounds like it may be.
Yeah, it's kind of, if this works, it's going to be called Apple Intelligence. If it doesn't, it was just something we done.
Yeah, it's actually the way it's going to be, isn't it? And yeah, Mairead, how important is things like, these new sound camera recording features? Why would, if you were buying a new iPhone now, like you're a Pro user at the moment, why would you go for a Pro as opposed to a standard 16? Obviously, there's a difference in price there.
It was pretty much the same reason for me, again, the battery life. I would have went for the Pro Max at the time, but it was just the price was way out of my budget, really. So, but again, I was definitely thinking of the battery life. That was it for me. I've had the standard editions before, and I've had the SE editions previously in the past. The last year was my first time having a Pro, and I definitely noticed a big difference in battery life. I get about a day and a half out of it now, whereas before I might have only just got the day, and as the battery degrades, not even the day. Like even a year later, I have my Pro now, almost 12 months. The 15 Pro, and even now my battery capacity, the battery health is still at 100%, whereas in my other ones I might be down to about 93, 92 at this stage. So I definitely think the battery lasts a lot longer, and for me battery is a big thing.
For sure. Diana, you have I think an 11 at the moment. Would you be tempted to upgrade on this one? How are you kind of feeling about it?
I mean, I'm always looking for a good reason to upgrade, but I think definitely I mean, first of all, there's enough differences between the 11, 5 miles behind already, and the 16, and then the 16 Pro as well. That alone would have convinced me. But also, like what Mairead said about the improved battery life, I think, and then also the upgrades and the improvement to the camera. I think definitely, yes, I'd be looking for an upgrade, at least personally. I think if I was on maybe a slightly newer iPhone, like the 14 or the 15, maybe not yet. I'd hold out. I'd hold out a little longer.
For sure. Yeah, no, I'm definitely staying put where I am right now. My 15 Pro is still doing me just fine, and I hope it will do me just fine for another couple of years yet. But some really interesting stuff there, and obviously that will get some of those Apple Intelligence features as well. The one, I guess, overarching Apple Intelligence feature, the newly announced feature yesterday, was the new visual intelligence. That is what Joe was talking about earlier on. That's going to be able to, scan an item, take a picture of a dog and identify its breed, take a picture of this math problem and it'll help you solve it and stuff like that. Mairead, how do you feel about this? Obviously, from an accessibility point of view, it could have some really handy use cases. We've seen how these visual tools can be used quite effectively in the past.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even even as it was described earlier, even for going into a restaurant or whatever, and it would be able to find the menu for you, that would be great. And even things like you could ask it basically like what's around you, that kind of thing, and it'll tell you. So instead of having glasses or whatever, it'll give you all that information, or even ask you things like, to describe a photo to you or something like that, even, without having to launch a third party app. I think, even if you just came across something there and then that you wanted information about, it's a really good feature to have.
I really do hope it's going to be able to, like, as you say, just describe photos, kind of Be My AI or Seeing AI style, or, there's so many options of them. There's Ira, there's Envision as well. I saw actually the founder of Envision was saying on X yesterday that he felt like a lot of the, features were, from an Apple, visual intelligence point of view, he didn't feel they were exciting. There was nothing there, that was going to really impress him, and he didn't think it was a very creative use of AI, which is an interesting perspective. But who knows? It is one of these things that in time, time will tell as to whether this is able to, lift a heavy weight as an accessibility feature. Diana, if I come back to you on this slightly, I guess we've seen in more recent times a lot more of mainstream features becoming accessibility features. We've seen this with, the visual intelligence potentially, but this is a broader trend, and it's ultimately a good thing, isn't it?
Definitely, yes. While there are a lot of arguments to be made about the ethics of AI, and those arguments I have very strong feelings about as well, I think overall, though, the fact that AI is becoming more mainstream, to use the term he said, in the case of accessibility, it's definitely a welcome improvement, a welcome change. Even just the ability to generate more accurate alt text, or with the visual intelligence, just pointing your camera at the restaurant and getting that information immediately. I'd definitely be interested to see how that works with voiceover. But it's a really important feature, and I do want to see more AI used in terms of pure accessibility. That I think is where there's a lot to be explored.
Absolutely. And there is proof that, there is demand for this, because the founders of Be My AI and Be My Eyes were talking on the Applevis podcast only recently, last week or so ago, that they were saying that they're getting on average around 88,000 requests for cited AI assistants per day, which is absolutely crazy to think about. I dread to think of there. I think myself and Sean Doran on our technology team were doing the maths, and we worked out that if they're paying full price for their API costs, it would cost around 3.5 million a year to maintain, which is a lot of money. But hey, it's not 13 billion, so there you go. But lots of really interesting stuff from the Apple event. Daniel, if I come to you, what was your highlight from the event for you?
Highlight for me, I suppose, the Apple Intelligence. I was a little bit disappointed to say that it's, iPhone 15 or higher is only going to be earmarked for this Apple Intelligence, and I know that was kind of alluded to earlier in the year. I thought they could have done a little bit more on that. Like, iPhone 14 user is not necessarily that old, so I think they should have pushed it a little bit further back down the chain. I do like the idea of the visual intelligence. I'm trying to find out, will it work on live video as opposed to just a photograph? And if it done, things on live video, I think it will be good. And I suppose I'm thinking of that Be My Eyes video that was released earlier in the year, where the guy was getting a taxi in London. It'd be interesting to see have Apple got a plan to go into that sphere.
It would be amazing if they did.
I think so. And you probably feel sorry then for the likes of Be My Eyes, who kind of broke the ground on it, and if Apple just come in and kind of steal their idea, well, I won't say steal their idea, but just take their idea and implement it. But I suppose when Apple do these kind of things, they do them well. It'd be interesting to see how this visual intelligence comes on. It's still not, are these branches of Apple Intelligence? We spoke earlier about the audio, and now we have the visual intelligence. Are these branches of Apple Intelligence? So I'd like to see how the whole thing is coming together under the umbrella.
Yeah, really interesting one.
Yeah, because I think, if this Apple Intelligence was done right, that it's integrated into Siri, it's integrated into your camera, it's integrated into your microphones. It's that's very powerful, I think.
Yeah, it's the combined kind of all of it pulled together is where the real power is, for sure.
Yeah, like if you're able to use the ask Siri there, Siri, look at my camera and tell me, is there a taxi?
Yeah.
That's I think that's where we'd like to probably see it, and probably there's service users all over the country jumping up and down now listening to that and saying, I wanted to do this, that and the other. And if there's only some way we could all kind of do a big pay spin or something like that and fire in all these, what would you like Apple Intelligence to do from your iPhone, from the camera, from the audio, and maybe AI go through those and pick out the best ones. And integrate it into their Apple Intelligence. I'd love that. I think it's again it's a good thing to start an out point for Apple, and I like to see where this goes. And I suppose it probably wouldn't. You were asking Diana and Mairead earlier, would they be rushing out to get a new iPhone? I probably wouldn't now, seeing this Apple Intelligence, and I'm always of the opinion that the first generation is something new. It's it's put out there, it's clunky, it's and then the second release, if it comes out and everything is fixed,
it's more refined,
more refined. So that would actually probably hold me back at the moment from bothering going with iPhone 15 or 16. I'd probably wait until see how this Apple Intelligence, visual intelligence, all gets going. And then is it
make
worth
a judgment then.
Is it worth investing? Because if not, if this thing doesn't live up to expectations, your current iPhone 12 to 14 models are quite good as to stand. They're quick, they're nifty, decent cameras, good accessibility features, the whole lot. So why would you upgrade if Apple Intelligence wasn't going to be of a huge benefit? I know you said battery life and things like that. Yes, that's definitely a thing. Outside of that, is there a good reason? Probably not.
Fair point. Mairead, what was your highlight from the event yesterday?
I think just I would say the new AirPods maybe are. I'd like to see the noise cancelling in them and see how well that works. Like maybe it would handle, especially if you were out in an outdoor environment and on a call. Sometimes I find it can be very hard to hear the other person on a call with the AirPods. So I think it could be that maybe. And I guess just the new features on like the new watches as well, maybe. Now, while I probably wouldn't purchase one at the moment, it is just nice to have a new one coming out and thinner screens and all that kind of thing. So that would be it for me, I think.
Awesome. And Diana, what was the standout moment for yourself?
For me, I think it definitely was the hearing aid feature on the AirPods. Pro 2. I mean, just comparing the price point between the AirPods and then, the current hearing aids out on the market, I think that alone would be a huge push for more people to maybe try out their new hearing aids feature and see, is it actually working? Is this useful? Could this mark a first step for Apple into more the health market or the medical device market, especially since as well they were the sleep apnea monitor on the Apple Watch. So I'll be looking out for further news on that, definitely.
I wonder in time, will we get to a point where if these become more and more medical devices, will we get HSE funded hearing aids, HSE funded AirPods even? Wouldn't that would be cool. But Diana, Daniel and Mairead, thank you so much for joining me to talk about all things Apple. Diana, I want to let you do a plug for all of the great stuff happening over at Viali. You're doing website audits, app audits, document remediation, and you've just launched the brand new Viali Insight. Do you want to tell us a little bit about all the stuff you've got going on?
Yes, of course. So Viali Insight, this is a software product that Viali has recently launched. And what it does is it really is taking a lot of the work out of manual digital accessibility audits, especially for those organizations who maybe have a lot of websites under their umbrella. The larger organizations like that, it's very useful. Our development team has put a huge amount of work into improving it and bringing it up to the standard, even surpassing in some cases the automated auditing tools already on the market. So lots of exciting things to look forward there for Viali. And then, like you mentioned as well, we are still doing our manual accessibility audit. So if you do find a mobile app or a website or even a digital document like a Word document or a PDF, that kind of thing, you can contact us at hello@viali.io. Viali is spelled Vially, by the way. And we can have a look at it and hopefully make it much accessible to anyone with a disability who needs to use it.
Super stuff. Diana, thank you so much as well. And thank you, Mairead and Daniel, for joining us as well. If you do want to get, maybe you work for a company, an organization, and you want to make sure that your apps, documents, websites, all of that are accessible, as Diana said there, you can get in touch with them. It's hello@Vially, VIALLY.io, not .ie.io. hello@Viali.io. Folks, thank you so much for joining us to talk about all of that. We really do appreciate it. And hey, if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on the Apple event, what do you feel about it? What were you most excited by? We'd love to hear from you. You can send us a WhatsApp voice note now. The number that you need, it's 086 199 0011, or you can send us an email to content@vi.ie. But now, well, it's Talking Technology News time.
This is Talking Technology News.
With your latest Talking Technology News, I'm Daniel Dunn. Freedom Scientific's next big thing is back. The company is looking for users to pitch features for JAWS, Zoom Text or Fusion for a chance to win free software licenses and Amazon gift cards worth up to $1,000. Users create a 3-minute pitch video, which is then judged for creativity, relevance, and impact on accessibility. The top 3 will win a 5-year license for JAWS, Zoom Text, or Fusion, with the top prize winner also receiving an Amazon gift card worth $1,000. The second and third place ideas will win $200 in gift cards, respectively. It's all part of Sharkvember, I'll get that one right, campaign, which kicked off last year to celebrate JAWS in the month of November. Entries are open until the 16th of October, with the winners being announced during Sharkvember. The competition is open to residents of the UK, the USA, Australia, and crucially for us, Ireland. You can enter as an individual or as a team of up to 3 people. It's an exciting opportunity to contribute your ideas to JAWS while also potentially winning some cool prizes. Best of luck to anyone taking part. Samsung have announced a number of new accessibility features for some of their home products at IFA 2024. A screen reader called Voice Guide will be rolling out to products over time, while invert colours and high contrast modes are set to come to some of the company's fridges and laundry units. Samsung's Voice ID will be able to identify who's talking and even will be able to personalize the experience, even adapting to someone's accessibility needs. As an example, if Mary talks to a smart assistant to control her washing machine, the accessibility features from Mary's phone can be mirrored on the washer. Samsung don't specify when this will happen and are right now just saying it's coming in the future. Regardless, this is really exciting and we're hopeful we'll see this tech coming out sooner rather than later. Visually impaired people are not the only ones to benefit from Samsung's innovations, with some devices now getting doors that open automatically. An action like opening a washing machine or fridge door can be extremely difficult or impossible for some people, so this is great to see. Let us know your thoughts. What's the one device in your home that you'd love to get a screen reader? Share your thoughts with a WhatsApp voice note. And finally, for now, Apple's GlowTime event has taken place. As you've heard, the main announcements were the iPhone 16 series, as well as the Apple Watch Series 10. AirPods are getting significant upgrades and can now act as hearing aids, which is an incredible claim. And there's a new visual intelligence feature that may potentially have some accessibility benefits. It's all exciting stuff, and while that wasn't Apple's most exciting event ever, you can't knock those quality of life improvements. In less positive news for Apple, a ruling today states that Apple need to pay Ireland $13.1 billion in unpaid taxes. Apple said it was disappointed with today's court ruling, adding that EU regulators were trying to reactively change the rules. Who knows, maybe if the state has $13 billion to spend, they might give Talking Technology a budget increase. Then we could get a half-decent host. Isn't that right, David?
Speak for yourself, Daniel.
And that's it for now. Remember, you can get more news with our Tech on Tap newsletter. Just sign up by searching Vision Ireland Labs newsletter, sign up on Google. And with that, it's back to you, David.
Thanks, Daniel. Thank you. I won't take that personally, Daniel. I promise. But yeah, some really interesting stuff there. And free JAWS licenses, that doesn't come around every so often, does it? That's a potentially really interesting one.
That's going to be an interesting one, and hopefully, some Irish users of JAWS Fusion or ZoomText will get their thinking caps on. They have what they have there until the 16th of October to get something together. So just a little over a month's time, they close the doors for that competition, and then they will announce it early in Sharkvember.
Yeah, Sharkvember. I really hoped, I think JAWS for a while had developed a kind of a reputation of not really innovating as much. I mean, NVDA was kind of the hot thing on the block for so long, and now it seems that JAWS, since they've introduced, Picture Smart and other features like that, they've really been on the offensive over the last while. They've been trying to catch up, and I think this is a great way of engaging with the community to actually get some really good ideas for the product. Hopefully some of those really cool ideas will make it in. And then the other...
and hopefully some of them will be Irish, ideas, and hopefully we'll get an Irish winner somewhere even in the top three. So, I'd appeal to the Irish JAWS, ZoomText and Fusion users to get their thinking caps on and really take this on, and because we are a nation of good thinkers, and I think we can come up with some quite good ideas.
Absolutely. And also some big news there as well in the world of Samsung smart devices. Some really nice accessibility features coming out of the IFA conference there in Germany. Some really nice stuff coming to these Samsung devices, including a screen reader called Voice Guide, which is great, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the, I think they have that on their TVs as a stand, so they're just expanding it out further.
Okay.
Great to see. Yeah, great to see. And I've worked setting up a few Samsung TVs for service users, and the device system on it is quite good. So after bringing something similar across to heavy white goods home appliances, they have a good starting point, and be interesting to see how well they integrate in. I'm sure they'll do a fairly good job on it.
I wonder, will some of this stuff be available, for those who already have devices? Will there just be software upgrades? Like we spoke with Joe, and Raheem was on to us earlier as well about, some of the new Samsung devices that they've got for their respective new kitchens. You would be hoping that some of that stuff will be available as a software update, but I guess time will tell on that one. The other thing to note is Vision Ireland do have some training coming up. And this is the 12th of September. That's this month.
So just 2 days away.
2 days away. Not long to sign up. But Daniel, what's on offer?
Okay, so Vision Ireland, we're offering all of our service users across the country an opportunity to join us online over Microsoft Teams. We're kicking it off 11 o'clock on Thursday morning. It's only for 45 minutes, but what we are going to be focusing on is a discussion around scams and frauds. It's a little bit of an online course that you can participate in. So, much like the real world, the online world has some risks and dangers to be aware of. One of the things you'll often hear about scams, online scams and frauds, and where somebody tries to trick you, and fraud, somebody tries to steal from you. So by being alert and informed, you can learn to, how you can identify the potential traps and benefit from all the good things that the internet has to offer. So it's just to be, help people become more aware of how these frauds and scams works, so you can, stay online safe. If this interests you, or maybe it might interest a friend, please ask them or yourself to drop an email to training@vi.ie. So that's training@vi.ie, just to add your name to the list, and you'll get a link back that you can join this online course meeting. It's 11 o'clock on Thursday morning, Thursday the 12th of September. It'll only go on for 45 minutes. So, but I think, as we get towards this time of the year, can I say Christmas?
Arnott's have opened their Christmas shop already, so I think
okay.
You're good.
We can just barely mention it. So Christmas is coming. All these frauds and scams really get ramped up at this time of the year, because as we approach the season, the amount of spend that goes on, particularly online, is phenomenal. And if these fraudsters and scammers can only get a tiny slice of that pie, it's such huge earning potentials for them. At your loss, of course. So
absolutely.
Not all are lost, but if we can all raise awareness about, and we make that slice of the cake even smaller for those guys, let them starve.
Yeah, that's the way we want it. So yeah, Daniel, thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate it. If you do want to check out that scams and frauds training, we won't be teaching you how to scam people and commit fraud. That's not what that's about. But if you want to identify scams and frauds, that's what it's for. You can send an email to training@vi.ie, and sign up for that is taking place at 11 o'clock on Thursday morning. But now it's Quick Picks time.
It's time for VI Labs Quick Picks.
Yes, indeed it has. And we've got one quick pick this week, and that is one that Joe talked about in a previous newsletter, and that is the Apple Support app. This is a really handy tool for those who aren't aware. You can go and download the Apple Support app, and there are tons of resources there and articles that you can read about everything and anything in relation to any of your Apple products. You can easily get in touch with an Apple support agent. It's actually really good. It integrates into just your normal messages app. So you can just message back and forth with an Apple support agent, just like you're having an iMessage conversation, really. And you can even do some really cool things like check, purchase history from the App Store and stuff like that. If you're wondering why is there that, $9.99 charge, what's that subscription for, you can check the history of all that. There's some really cool functions there in the Apple Support app. So it's a handy one to have on your phone, and a reminder that if you don't want to use the Apple Support app, or you just need some other assistance, there are some great resources out there for you. There is Apple Vis that is now back open as of yesterday. The Apple Vis site is open again with all sorts of great resources on there. Or we have tons of resources here in Vision Ireland, including our technology support help desk. And if you do want to call that technology support help desk, it's open 9 to 5, and you can give us a call. The number that you need is 1-800-911-110. That's 1-800-911-110. And a member of our happy team of tech trainers and tech support specialists will be there to give you a hand. I'm happy to do so. But for now, I guess that's it. We have had a great podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the last little while. Loads of really interesting stuff coming out of Apple. And about 13 billion coming out of their bank account, apparently. But there you go. I won't stop saying it. It's a lot of money, and it'll be really interesting to see where that goes. Definitely opportunities for some cool stuff to happen when there's 13 billion flying around, but time shall tell on that. That's our show. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you do want to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you. 086 199 0011 is the number that you need. That's 086 199 0011. Or you can send us an email to content@vi.ie. But for now, thank you so much for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks' time for another episode of Talking Technology with VI Labs.
Thanks for listening to the Talking Technology podcast with VI Labs. If you'd like to support our show, please visit vi.ie/donate. Talking Technology is proudly sponsored by IA Labs, the market leader in digital accessibility services. IA Labs, digital inclusion, your legal obligation.